panelists, and thank you for taking out the time. I'll start my first question in discussing with Salah in terms of a broader perspective. So Salah, looking at your experience in the end-to-end energy value chain, what do you feel are the top few decarbonization opportunities that companies and our audience here can look forward to?
Thank you very much, Hari. Before I start my conversation, I would like to extend the congratulation message to Indian Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas for this successful arrangement of this conference, and wishing them more success in the future. Coming back to your question, at ADNOC, we are securing world energy and a very responsible, sustainable, with bold initiatives in place, in which 100% in line with our energy transition and decarbonization mandates. To share with you and the audience what we are doing at ADNOC, I will give you a couple of examples. In 2022, we have tapped our onshore operation, which is a major operation, to a clean energy network supplied by Masdar, which is our solar power supplier, and ENEC, which is our nuclear supplier. These initiatives led to reduce the CO2 emission by 4 million tons annually. Also, in 2023, we have embarked on a major project worth almost $4 billion to export that clean energy from onshore to our offshore operations. That will support us to reach 50% reduction of our offshore CO2 emission. Furthermore, we are now doing electrification across our operation and facilities, major projects in their way, to ensure that we are proceeding with our net zero, the accelerated net zero by 2045. These two major projects that and initiatives that we have. Furthermore, we are partnering with our PACA, which is one of Abu Dhabi owned company, and establish Masdar. Today, Masdar has the capacity of 20 gigawatt of clean solar energy, aiming by 2030 to bring it to 100 gigawatt. And also, we have one of our pillars as well is to be nature-based low carbon solutions, which is plantation of mangrove trees. We have managed to plant 10 million since 2020 and aiming to reach additional 10 million by 2030. That because they have they are sink of the carbon, they inhale more than they what exhale. So that's the nature based. Also, we are looking into the cutting edge technology to support us decarbonizing. At ADNOC, we are really proud of being a founding member of oil and gas industry decarbonization charter, in which 50 companies joined that charter. 19 of them are adopting the net zero for first time, and 31 of them committed to net zero methane net zero by 2030. So that's flavor of our experience at ADNOC.
Oh, that's very enticing and exciting to know both the fact that the energy requirement of the energy industry is coming in from renewable sources and making our production that much less reliant on non fossil fuel related sources, which is very interesting to know. Thank you, Salah, for that. Mansi, moving to you, Shell as a organization looks at the end-to-end energy value chain and does work across the board, both globally and in India. Can you throw a little bit of light in terms of what are the themes and initiatives that Shell is following both globally and bringing into India? And for the purpose of our audience, what is it that you plan to implement in India on the net zero journey as well?
Okay, thanks, Sari, and thanks to everyone over here for joining this session, because it's really pertinent that we talk about decarbonization in the oil and gas, and I guess Shell being at the core of it, has put in a lot of thinking about it. So globally, as you know, close to 5.1 billion tons of emission happen because of the gas, oil and gas industry, which is 15% of the emissions. So it's imperative for us in the industry to be taking up very seriously and committing. And as Shell, we have committed to the net zero by 2050 or earlier. So in terms of, our overall strategy is hinged on the, kind of like the classical 3 I's, which is on what needs to be done on the first I, which is infrastructure, the second I, which is the investment which is needed, and the third I, which is what's the innovation which will be needed around it, yeah? And, I think within those 3 I's, we follow the same principle of like, what can we avoid, what can we reduce, and then what can we mitigate, whatever we can't do with the above 2. And in the avoid category, I guess we are looking at wide range of options to say, okay, how do we move to more renewable sources? And in that, as you know, within India, we have gone ahead and bought solar energy with Spring. We are diversifying further in natural gas and to see, other options which will be available there. In the reduce part of it, again, whole host of, and the whole value chain, if we can pick up, to see what is, how the energy is getting used for producing in the refineries and other places, to what kind of infrastructure changes which we need to make, and then each of the elements within that to go to more energy efficient elements. And then of course in mitigate, we are using the classical pieces to see what we can do through NBS, through carbon credits, and then potentially to see what can be done in the CCU as well. Yeah, so I think it's a whole host of things. I wish there was a single answer to this one, but the reality is that each of them then add up to the whole story. And the key for us to be is unrelenting, because as the energy production will increase, so will be the emissions. And I think we'll have to balance that very carefully as we go forward.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, it's very interesting that you spoke about 3 I's, and in Hindu mythology, we have the story about one of our lords, Lord Shiva, having a third eye, which opens up and brings interesting insights. And that third eye is innovation. And we must think and talk about innovation and figure out how innovation solves for the conundrum that energy industry produces the maximum amount of carbon and energy industry aspires to get to net zero. So that is a conundrum that the third eye needs to solve for, absolutely.
Well said.
Moving to Pankaj, Pankaj, Salah spoke about how many companies globally have signed up on getting to net zero methane by 2030. You're a producer of methane, and it's an essential source of cleaner energy than what we are used to in India, but it's still not as clean as one would like it to be. What are your thoughts on the future of methane as a source of energy, and especially in India, what is the story that you see methane taking up and replacing from the dirtier fuels?
Thank you, Hari. Let me first thank you for the special introduction that you made for me. You're absolutely right. Salah made a very pertinent point. And when NDOC talks about, they talks about billions of dollars. Millions have no role to play in. Coming to the point that you raised, it's a very valid point. But, in the earlier forum also we heard that gas is a transit fuel. I am a firm believer that gas is a mainstay fuel, at least for the next 2 decades. Only the form will change. We may have hydrocarbons of gas being used from an end-use perspective, not by industries, but maybe by fertilizer. Fertilizer, India imports still about 2/3 of its need. So the end use may change, but the gas is going to remain as the mainstay fuel. Now, what we do at Essar, and our sponsors are fully committed to the fact, we actually are not only producing methane, we are taking it out from coal seams. And I'll give you the prime example of it. If we do not take that out, you may have heard about stories, you may have very recently seen a movie, Mission Running Up. It was a very talked about movie. What was exactly happening is that the gas trapped into coal seams got released and it killed several tens of miners. That not only killed miners, but also, when released, depletes the ozone layer almost 100 times more dangerously than a normal CO2 emission. So what we are doing is actually doing something which is very friendly for the future generations. Maybe hundreds of years later, all these coal seams, whenever they are mined, we are making them future safe. We are taking out all these gas, turning it out as an industrial fuel, reducing the carbon footprint even today and for the next 100 years. So I actually would encourage, and there are multiple case in points available. One, what we are doing is, we currently produce at SR 1% of India's production. The plan for us, with the known field that we have, is to go up to almost 5%. And there is a firm line of commitment, there is a firm line of work which we are carrying out. Today we are producing 1.3%, and by the next 3 years we are going to produce 5%. Second, there are numerous examples available across the globe. Take, for example, Australia. Australia today produces 110 billion standard cubic meters of gas per day from CBM alone. And mind you, this is 1.3 times the production of gas made from all possible forms in India. India produces today 90 million standard cubic meters of gas. CBM alone can serve the purpose. China produces today 28 billion standard cubic meters of gas per day, whereas 7 years back they were only producing 4 billion. So 7 times increase in 7 years. And that is what we at SR are trying to replicate. We are bringing in the best of cutting edge technologies to make sure that not only we produce at a much faster rate, and we produce at such massive volumes that we can do a lot of import substitution, and we can save a lot of government exchequer in terms of imports being substituted with our own Indian gas.
Absolutely, and thanks for that. And clearly, the theme is the production of CBM is actually it's a green initiative. It's in itself a green initiative and is aimed at reducing the carbon footprint in the environment. So yeah, thanks and kudos to the work that you're doing. Moving to, I guess we need to talk about for all these activities in decarbonization, you need technology. Yeah. And Najib is the resident expert on technology as a technology provider to almost all companies that are sitting in the audience. So Najib, can you throw some light in terms of what are the technologies and what are the innovations, if I may put it that way, that SLB is working on and is prophesizing would be coming to use to drive decarbonization?
Very good. Thank you, Harry. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to be here today. It's my second year to participate in India Energy Week, and I'm very pleased to see all the progress that is taking place. So just to reflect a little bit on what we just heard, in SLB, we believe that the world is facing its greatest balancing act. In the Asian context, this is extremely important because Asia will be and is the center of gravity when it comes to the global energy demand for decades to come. We've already established the last 2 days that we will have to use all sorts of energy for decades to come. And I want to highlight that gas, which is a transition fuel that comes with 20% less CO2 emission compared to oil, 40% less than coal, is a key opportunity for us in Asia because there are abundant of resources here in Asia, and we've seen a renaissance of investments taking place across many countries. So what does that mean, right? It means that the industry now has a new opportunity and an imperative. First, to accelerate some of these gas resources at low cost and low carbon and benefit from the lower CO2 footprint. But the second and the most important one is to really work on eliminating methane emissions, right? And my colleagues here spoke a bit about it today. And the third is to examine all the existing assets and ensure that we maximize production again at the lowest cost, lowest carbon. And we believe that accelerated technology adoption and following a total system approach will be of a great benefit. For us, we are a global technology company, so we're excited to lead in that space, to define how it is, to adopt the new trends, to share the knowledge through our technology offering, and through our expanded network of innovation and collaboration. And what I want to bring here to the audience today is one example, one technology, and that is digital. So that's what I want to expand on right now. So digital has brought unprecedented levels of efficiency when it comes to subsurface modeling, field development planning, slashing time and fast-tracking developments. We've seen it happening in many places in Asia with Woodside in Australia, where they run reservoir simulations down from 18 months to 18 days, and with Petronas, where they slash field development planning by 6 to 8 months. So you can see how you could benefit accelerating the gas resources. That's one. But digital is also bringing huge efficiencies to the drilling space, which comes with a big CO2 footprint. Last week only, we announced together with Petrobras in one of their offshore platforms our ability to drill a 2.6 kilometer well section, 99% fully autonomous with no human involvement. So what does that mean? It sounds nice, but what does it really mean? It means that today, the world that we have today that sees or benefits from drilling visualization and analytics, perhaps some insights and predictive analytics, is now evolving and moving towards a space of full automation. Meaning now you could drill wells, plan and drill wells consistently. You could bring efficiencies like doubling ROP. In this campaign that I just spoke about, we doubled the ROP on a 5-well pad. And ultimately reduce the well construction footprint, reduce the CO2 footprint. So we are on the cusp of benefiting of all of that in the E&P industry. We're excited about it. But the part that really, really excites me the most in the digital space is what we can do in the infrastructure and in the production system space. My colleagues spoke a bit about it. And an element of that also connects with electrification. So whether that is in the completion space or the artificial lift space, where you could access multiple zones, you could optimize production, get more of the fluids that you want, less of the fluids that you don't want, that's water. So you manage the reservoir production better. By the way, water production and handling on surface is almost 50% of the energy consumption. So just handling that, you'll slash some of that energy. But also bringing digital to the FPSO space, so you could optimize the FPSO processing, right? And again, slash some of that CO2 footprint. And more important, in the subsea. And that's of a particular interest for an area like India and the East Coast, because in the subsea, you could install subsea boosting and wet gas compressors where you could tie back 100, 150 kilometer wells. So what does that mean? Meaning you could drill less wells, you could eliminate infrastructure, you could optimize the footprint, again, remove a lot of the CO2 footprint. And what we've done just last year, we established a JV. It's a new JV with Aker Solutions. We call it OneSubsea, where we combined our best offering in electrification in the completion space, right? We have it with their, and in the subsea, with their best offering in subsea wet gas compressors. So now the industry can benefit from a fantastic portfolio that can scale at speed. And we have many examples in Norway, in Gulf of Mexico, with Equinor, with Shell, with Murphy, where we tied back wells that are 100 kilometers away, increase gas production by 30%, and reduce the CO2 footprint per unit of gas by 50%. So I feel and we believe that the industry can benefit big time from digital and electrification, and a region like India, indeed.
No, absolutely. Some very good examples and very precise ideas in terms of how the upstream industry can crash time leveraging digital and other technologies. And that is truly the innovation. And it's not just about how digital and analytics and data is helping crash times, but it's now getting more and more automated. So the human intervention and life at risk is also addressed through some of those interventions. Definitely very interesting. Taking a leaf out of that, Salah, at ADNOC, what are the digital and other tools and technologies that you have implemented that you see could be used by, put to use by our colleagues in India and use that to drive technological advancement as well as decarbonization as the added goal?
Sure. This is very good questions, because ADNOC way now, it is towards autonomous operation, intelligence, artificial-based operation. We have now awarded all our projects. Even we named the project or our mandate the P5, which we are building our capacity to 5 million by year in 2027. We are calling them AI P5. So it is artificial intelligence P5. So that we want to embed that culture and people awareness that autonomous operation is coming, the digitalizations are coming. I'll give you a few examples of the technologies that we have adopted. For example, we have at ADNOC HQ the Panorama. I'm not sure if one of the audience had the chance to visit. It is the hub of all the data that's coming. So it's about big data management, that's looking for the efficiency into the business to simplify our processes, procedures, people interactions. That's supporting us in our decarbonization by providing more efficiency into our business. We have also conducted a pilot, we call it RoboWell. So that's one of our initiatives of digitalizing our well. So just imagine number of wells that we have at ADNOC. Every wells will be fully digitalized. We call them now RoboWells. So they have self-diagnostic systems, can interact with the control room operator or with our ultimate objective, which is the autonomous operation. So it will be machine-operated system. So don't need for the operation to daily visit. So that's supporting reducing the CO2 footprints by less, emissions, less move, vehicle at the site or vessels at the offshore. So these two examples that we have it. If I may add, it's not only technologies, but let's say practices or low carbon solutions that we have. We have Riyadh. Riyadh, it was established in 2016 just to make sure that we have the initiative of carbon capture. So in partner with Masdar, ADNOC and Masdar established Riyadh. Riyadh is focused on carbon capture and re-injected back to the reservoir. That's have two objectives. First, I'm eliminating the carbon emission produced by Emirates Steel, fully captured by Riyadh, re-injected back into the reservoir as enhanced recovery scheme. So that's the good, let's say, solution, low carbon solution that we are bringing in. Also, we are also capitalizing on artificial islands. And instead of having huge steel structures scattered at offshore, we are localizing our operation so that will reduce the carbon prints. So these are examples of technologies and good practices that's been initiated and driven by ADNOC. Other technologies that we have, if I refer to Najib, yes, water management consume a lot of energy. What we are doing, we are localizing the water management at the upstream. We're not taking it to the processing area to avoid consuming a lot of energy in a water that will be treated and disposed. So we are bringing technologies that will dispose the water locally and save energy. So these couple of initiatives.
Very interesting examples, and I'm particularly intrigued by this whole concept of carbon capture and using it to drive artificial lift back in the wells. And I think that's a good closed loop example of how one can both eliminate carbon and use that in order to increase production and enhance the oil recovery through artificial means. And I think those are some things that we must definitely pilot and try in the Indian upstream industry to try and
if I may add one example, because I just remembered Schlumberger and what we are doing in ADNOC also. We are the ESP, which is electrical submersible pump that artificially lifting the crude, we are replacing with a rigless. So we are piloting this technology, enabling the market to come up with solutions that support low carbon, because I will replace rig workover, which is consuming more energy, releasing more emissions, with a rigless, which is softer and energy management. So that's encouraging the market to, to come with the solutions. And we are taking that, let's say, calculated risk to support the market by piloting their solutions as well.
Sure. Thank you very much, and thanks for that. I'll change gears and talk a little bit now, get into a little bit of downstream, specifically Mansi, with your experience in lubricants. We spoke about the fact that India is going to become the largest refining hub in the world. Yesterday, the Honorable PM spoke about it. With more refining, more products will be made, and a large portion of that will be in lubricants. How do you suppose lubricant companies and lubricant teams can look forward to decarbonization, and what are some of the initiatives that you've taken specifically in lubricants?
Yeah, no, thanks, Hari, again. So I think for lubricants, what we did was a full analysis, and what we called it as cradle to grave story. Yeah, so I think from the first time the molecule gets into anything which is to do with lubricants, so it's like all your raw products, the base oils, the additives, right till the point it gets used, and mapped up as to how much of carbon is emitted in each of that process, which one is more important, which one is less. And for then each of them, and I'll just walk you through very quickly. So for the base oil, what we said was like, how can we use more of re-refined base oil so that we are in the circularity and, kind of like don't emit anything new and reuse all of that. Likewise for additives, we have been working with a lot of our suppliers to see how do they decarbonize their chains till the point it comes to us. Then our own operations, we are using more energy efficient uses. We are replacing everywhere gas as much as possible in terms of our own energy needs. And through use of data, we are trying to optimize the total energy which gets used in any of our plants. And, it's leading to a pretty substantial decrease. Then we look at all the distribution points over here, and we're working with all our primary logistics and secondary logistics to see how we can change the amount of load which they are carrying at each time and reduce that. Likewise, can that we be using a multimodal instead of just using the trucks? Can we bring in railways into the logistics story? And how we can use the bigger IBCs rather than using the smaller pack sizes. Likewise, packaging, while packaging looks at, as a very important, in the overall value chain, it's only a 3% contributor. But nevertheless, a lot of work getting to say, okay, how do we use recycled plastic? How do we really, again, collect that? Can we using other sources to be transporting, our products? And then, I think as it goes to the usage part of it, increasing through, again, innovation and technology, our products so that they are more energy efficient. So whatever was getting used by, say, 1 liter of lubricants, can that 1 liter run longer in terms of its actual usage, and hence reducing the fuel consumption along the way. And then end of life, to say, okay, what can, again, cycle back into the cradle again so that it doesn't go to the grave. And whatever is left, then we are trying to do is buying carbon credits and then again planting and working with a lot of NBS to offset anything which is left. So that gives you like a full story to say, okay, what is our pathway? And over the last 2 years, we have been able to decrease the overall emission by 23% in Asia Pacific, which we feel really good about. And we are on a path of 50% reduction in next 2 years. And then what we believe is by 2035, in lubricants, we should be able to get to net zero on
That
scope
is
1 and
fantastic.
2.
Fabulous. Fabulous stories. In fact, very bold ambition as well, and very aggressive ambitions. The examples that you spoke about from the cradle to the grave and looking at disposal, I think it is definitely an end-to-end example of how in a product's life cycle, one can look at being completely net zero. I particularly like the point that you made that, how do we increase the efficiency and extend the life of the fuel or the lubes that are being used, because that's looking at scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and looking at it from an end-to-end perspective. Pankaj, I know that SR also has significant investments in downstream, and you have a large refinery based in the UK. what are the net zero actions that you're taking in the refining sector? And if you could give some examples to the audience in terms of what they can learn from in the downstream space.
Let me answer this, the downstream part, along with what my esteemed panelists spoke about on the technology side as a combined answer. So at ESSA, technology happens to be at our core. So we are actually working on decarb and technology improvement on 3 legs. One, don't invent the wheel, learn it from the experts. So we are tying up with best possible experts, Schlumberger, like a Sensia tie-up that we did with Schlumberger. Similarly, Halliburton of the world. So learn it and ape shamelessly from the experts so that you don't have to spend that money and the effort. So that is part one of our leg. And some commendable work which he spoke about on drilling time reduction, on reduction in terms of workover, etc. We have done that along with the best known experts. So that is job well done. Part two is something that we are doing as a breakthrough innovation ourselves. So we are the first in India, possibly first in Asia, who have put in microbial as one of the solutions to maximize the production. So that is something that we take immense pride in. Microbial is one, radial drilling in this part of the world, we did it for the first time. Yeah. We'll be doing hydrofracturing possibly on a horizontal well for the first time in Asia. So these are certain core and key things that we have been doing as a part of our own story. Then comes in the third part, which possibly would really answer your question as well. On the on our downstream side, we are investing good about $1.2 billion over the next 3 years. The idea is that we are a part of the government project by the name of HyNet, which is reduction of almost 12% of carbon emissions in the northwest part of the world. And that is quite a sizable number from any standpoint. We will be reducing the carbon footprint by almost 1 million tons through that initiative. We are also partnering with ENI, where there will be a carbon capturing also will be done. So our fuel would be largely reducing the carbon footprint by 96% from the current norms. So this is a very, very great initiative which has been undertaken at a group level. And ESSA remains committed not only from a sustainability standpoint, but also, as I mentioned, to the core value of our innovation.
Oh, very interesting and very exciting examples as well. Getting innovation done, especially from a net zero perspective, does not happen alone with a company deciding it. You need to bring in a lot of partners, and like Pankaj you spoke about, you're bringing in Schlumberger and other experts and bringing their learning into the system to implement something. Najib, can you talk about, I know you bring a lot of your technologies, but how does one bring in an entire ecosystem to play and collaboration to play in order to drive decarbonization in the value chain?
Excellent question, Harry. Indeed, I mean, if we want to deliver on the imperatives I mentioned earlier, bring higher value, low carbon, you need everybody in the value chain within E&P or even across industries to take the level of collaboration and partnership to the next level, because the challenges technically and commercially are immense, and no one can do it alone, and no one can afford to spend the tens of years to develop a technology or a process and take it to market. You need rapid experimentation. This is extremely, extremely important in the digital space and the renewable space, because in digital, we've seen that system integration bottlenecks have been the roadblock for adopting digital at scale. So creating an ecosystem where partners can come together and develop digital solutions is key to scale. I'll give you an example on that. Last year, we signed the technology collaboration agreement with Cognite, where we unified our subsurface open data enterprise system with Cognite Data Fusion, which is the open industry operational platform, where now the customers can unify subsurface data with wells data, with the network data, with processing facilities, with midstream. And that means you could handle huge volumes of data from any software, anyone. So it's quite open. And run and build your own, or together with the customer, the AI algorithms needed to do production optimization, gas lift optimization, ESP pump optimization. Salah spoke about it a little bit, right? Optimization of injection of chemicals, name it. Ultimately, you'll reduce cost and footprint and enhance production. The few work that we're doing around the globe has shown an improvement in production anywhere between 4 to 7% and a reduction of cost roughly around 10%, and we're at the initial stages. So just imagine a world with all of that. And we are deploying this in India with the Cairn in the Rajasthan field at the early stages where we're looking at visualization and analytics, but we're going to take that to the next step. Another very good example on decarbonization and digital, we're doing it with a customer. Aramco has chosen us to be their technical partner to build the industry's digital sustainability platform. So this is an enterprise-wide platform that will allow companies to connect multiple sites, facilities around the globe. So anyone in the industry can use it, particularly hard-to-abate industries, to do a few things, right? To measure and quantify their emissions, report it, verify it, then run scenarios on the decarbonization pathways, run the economics, and ultimately select the right method. We internally use that platform to track our own emissions and our own actions, so we're benefiting from it. Today, we are already a 20% reduction in Scope 1 and 2 in our journey, and we're going to bring this to the market in the third quarter this year, and we're quite excited about it.
Perfect. Very interesting examples, definitely. Pankaj, from an Indian economy perspective, energy demand is going to continue to grow, and so will the requirement for gas. Can you speak a little bit about how will we manage the energy security and cater to the energy demand while still focusing on ensuring that we get to decarbonization targets?
See, decarb and energy security are not mutually exclusive. They are very, very closely related. I gave an example of India being the 4th largest coal reservoir, and since we have been a showcase investment and a pivotal case for CBM, let me talk about for a few seconds on that, and then I'll come to the case in point. We've got 92 TCF of gas in place from CBM alone. We are the 4th largest coal repository. If the world can produce, or the countries like Australia can produce 100+ million, there is no reason why India cannot do it. India currently imports 50% of its needs. Even if we contribute 5-10% through CBM, through alternate other means, then comes in all those renewable, etc. The energy security can be greatly secured. And at the same breath, decarb, or I would say decarb is a journey. The first step is to make sure that you move away from fossil fuels, so that you actually take a step towards realizing that even this 50% emissions from the fossil fuels in terms of diesel or gas is not acceptable. So move away from that. And how would that happen? You take the first step towards the journey that the coal part should move off, so that you move to a relatively cleaner form, which is gas. Which is why I spoke about earlier that it is not a transient fuel. For the next few decades, it's a mainstay fuel. So it is a journey, and the government of India has taken some very good initiatives. We saw 1 lakh crore being invested, or 1 lakh crore being committed as the innovation fund in this budget, in this fiscal budget. And this was a statement on account budget. This was not even a proper fiscal budget. So some very bold steps, some very great initiatives been undertaken by the government of India. And innovation remains as one of the key. And if this initiative were to really move forward, I think this can be achieved reasonably quickly.
Sure, thank you for that. And Mansi, so Pankaj spoke about this whole 1 lakh crore investment that the government is talking about. The government plays the role of the policy maker. What do you think is the role that the policy maker can play in this whole journey of decarbonization of the energy industry?
Obviously it's a very pivotal, and if you see any case study, in any industry across any market, whatever may be done, ultimately a lot of influence is being done by the final policy, which makes the final push in terms of what needs to be done. So I guess it's really imperative for us as an industry also to define what we need in any industry to get through. And we have seen some great case studies, electric vehicles being one, where once the FAME 1, FAME 2 framework was set up, we saw an acceleration in the entire, which came in ultimately through some of the policy benefits. So, I guess it's very critical, and it's up to us as well as an industry to come together to influence that policy.
No, absolutely, and that's a very good example as well. Salah, I think we are running out of time, but final question. What have you seen as the top 2 or 3 initiatives that the government of India can influence, which will drive us towards a net zero economy?
I think this is very good question. And if I go back to inauguration speech delivered by, His Excellency the Prime Minister, he focused on the demand will increase in India, and but he mentioned collaboration, knowledge sharing, and energy transition. So what we need to strike the balance to maintain the demand need through, I believe, partnership with the market, technology suppliers, and knowledge sharing through the, our partners, what best practices can be deployed to India for adoption. And I think the best practice technologies are renewable, increase the renewable resources. That's
very good insights, definitely. Salah, Mansi, Pankaj, Najib, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences, as well as some of the examples. I hope the audience got a good mix of understanding of upstream, midstream, and downstream, as well as some specific case studies of what some of our global and local organizations are doing to drive energy security and decarbonization at the same time. Please put your hands together for the panel. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Hari, for moderating us.
Thank you for your excellent moderation.
All right.
For the picture.